All right, let us talk about new criticism. New criticism goes by other appellates, other nomenclatures, other nom de plumes, other aliases, other identities. You can call it modernism. In case you don't hear new criticism, you might hear modernism. You can call it textual criticism because it's text directed. It's focused on the text. You can call it textual criticism. You can call it ontological criticism because the work of art is seen to have a structure of its own essence, ontological, ontological, ontological criticism. You can call it formalism. You can call it formalism. And you can also call it aesthetic criticism. You can also call it aesthetic criticism. Aesthetic criticism. So new criticism was popular in the first part of the 20th century. In the first part of the 20th century, up to the 1940s. It has a number of proponents. You cannot discuss theory without talking about some of the proponents or identifying the proponents of the theory. I mean the major critics who have written on the theory. Right? One of them is Clent Brooks. Clent Brooks is spelled C-L-E-A-N-T-H. C-L-E-A-N-T-H. Brooks is spelled B-R-O-O-K-S. Clent Brooks. Another proponent is I.A. Richards. I.A. Richards. Or if you want to write it in full, you can say Ivor Armstrong Richards. Ivor Armstrong Richards. I.A. Richards. Ivor is spelled I-V-O-R. Then Armstrong, then Richards. Then you have Rene Wellek. Rene is spelled R-E-N-E. The last E has an accent. Wellek is spelled W-E-L-L-E-K. Rene Wellek. Another prominent proponent of new criticism is W.K. Wimsatt. W.K. Wimsatt. W.K. Wimsatt. Wimsatt is spelled W-I-M-S-A-T-T. W-I-M-S-A-T-T. Wimsatt. W-I-M-S-A-T-T. Wimsatt. W.K. Wimsatt, where W means William and K means Kurt, that's K-U-R-T-Z. W.K. Wimsatt. Another proponent of new criticism is John Crowe Ransom. John Crow Ransom. John Crow Ransom. Crow is spelled Crowe. Crowe. John Crow Ransom. Ransom is spelled Ransom. Ransom. John Crow Ransom. And finally, we have RP Blackman. RP Blackman. RP Blackman. Blackman is spelled Black, Blackmur, Blackman, Blackman. Blackman, Blackmur, Blackman. Happy Blackman. Happy stands for Richard Palmer. Happy Blackman. Richard Palmer Blackman. Richard Palmer Blackman. Now, what you need to know is that modernist criticism is anchored on the concept of art for art's sake. Modernist criticism is anchored on the concept of art for art's sake. Art for art's sake is the belief that literature should be studied for its own sake. That is art for art's sake. It's the belief that literature should be studied for its own sake, for its own beauty, for its own pleasure, for its own enjoyment, and not for any other purpose, especially in the social world. That means literature is not supposed to talk about social realities with the hope of changing them or bring about any change in society. Literature should be studied for its own beauty. That is why one of the names given to new criticism is aesthetic criticism, because you focus on the language of the text to see how beautiful the language is, how the writer has manipulated the language of the text. So remember that modernist criticism is anchored on the concept of art for art's sake, where literature is studied for its own sake and not to make statements about social realities in the author's milieu. There are three concepts that can help us understand new criticism, which is a type of criticism where the text and only the text is studied in order to unveil its meaning, whereby only the text and the text alone is studied in order to unveil its meaning without making reference to the author or to the social situations around the text. In new criticism, we believe that the text is complete on its own. In new criticism, we believe that the text is complete on its own. We believe in the organic nature of the text. In new criticism, we believe in the organic nature of the text, the idea that the text is complete on its own. The text has its own internal structure. And that the meaning of the text is embedded in those structures. So we don't need any information outside the text to determine the meaning of the text. We don't need any information outside the text in order to determine the meaning of the text. Everything you need to understand the text is in the text. So you study the text and only the text alone to arrive at its meaning. That is new criticism. And as I said, we have three concepts in new criticism that when we explain them, you have a better understanding of the theory. One of them is intentional fallacy. Intentional fallacy. Everybody say intentional fallacy. Intentional fallacy. Intentional fallacy. This is the belief that, and of course it's in new criticism, is an erroneous belief. In new criticism is an erroneous belief. This is the belief that the author usually has an intention in writing the text, and that it is the duty of the critic to find out that intention when reading the text. That the author usually has a purpose of writing the text. That the author usually has its own meaning for writing the text, and so it is the duty of the critic to find out what that meaning is. That is called authorial meaning. It's called what? Authorial meaning. Meaning as intended by the author. That is an intentional fallacy. The erroneous belief that the author has a hidden meaning by writing the text, and that it is the duty of the critic to do what? To find out what that meaning is. So the sole purpose of criticism should be to find out what the author means, right? Which was popular with romantic criticism. But in new criticism, we see it as what? Erroneous and fallacious for you to believe that there's a meaning in the text as intended by the author. This is an erroneous belief, because new criticism does not believe that there is a meaning as intended by the author. The art object in new criticism has an objective meaning. Has what? An objective meaning. And by objective meaning, we mean the meaning that everyone arrives at when they use a scientific approach to study the text. Because you see, new criticism claims that it offers us a scientific approach to the study of literature. Criticism claims that it offers us what? A scientific approach to the study of literature. So the objective meaning is the meaning that everyone who uses that scientific approach will arrive at in the work of art. We normally say in other forms of criticism that you can arrive at different meanings in a work of art, but not in objective criticism, not in new criticism, because in new criticism we have objective meaning, and everyone must use the scientific approach to arrive at that objective meaning. And that meaning is independent of the author. That meaning is independent of the author's intention, intended meaning. And this is because the author ceases to exist after writing the text. The author ceases to exist after writing the text. So the new critics, those who practice new criticism, are called the new critics. The new critics believe in the death of the author. The what? The death of the author. The new critics believe in the death of the author. They believe that the author dies immediately after writing the literary work. And so the author ceases to play a part in the meaning, in determining the meaning of the text. The author ceases to play a part in determining the meaning of the text. So the death of the author is one of the principles of new criticism. The death here is what? It's a metaphoric death. Is what? A metaphoric death. We believe that the author metaphorically dies after writing the text, so that he plays no role in determining what the work means. The meaning of the work resides in the text and not with the author. So to think that you are reading a text to find out the author's meaning, the authorial meaning, is fallacious. It's an error which must not be allowed in new criticism. Okay, so we move on to the next term, the next concept in new criticism that will allow us to understand the theory better. And that concept is affective fallacy. Is what? Affective fallacy. Affective fallacy. Affective is spelled A-F-F-E-C-T-I-V-E. Affective fallacy. Affective fallacy. So affective fallacy is based on the erroneous belief that the work of art usually creates an effect in the mind of the reader, and that effect should determine the meaning of the work. That the work of art creates an effect in the mind of the reader, and that effect should determine the meaning of the work. By this, it is meant that new criticism does not allow for impressionistic criticism. New criticism does not allow for impressionistic criticism. New criticism does not allow for the use of impressionistic criticism. Reading the work of art based on the impression that it makes on you, the reader, should not determine what the work means as far as the new critics are concerned. Because the meaning of the text is not based on how you feel when reading it. The meaning of the text is in the use of language. The meaning of the text resides in the text. So it's erroneous to think that once you use one's impression in order to determine the meaning of the text. So it is by objectively studying the language of the text, the tropes of the text, that one can determine the meaning of the text, and not by how one feels when reading the text. It's not by how one feels when reading the text. All right? So that when you feel good, when you say I feel good, then the text is good. All right? But when you feel bad, then the text is bad. That is impressionistic criticism. It's not allowed in the tenets of neocriticism. All right, so we move on to the third one. You know what the third one is? The third one is heresy or paraphrase. Heresy or paraphrase. Heresy or paraphrase. Heresy or paraphrase. Heresy is spelled H-E-R-A-S-Y. So heresy or paraphrase. Heresy or paraphrase. This is the erroneous belief. This is the erroneous belief that parts of the text could be rewritten or paraphrased and it still retains its meaning. This is the erroneous belief that parts of the text could be rewritten or paraphrased and it still retains its meaning. And it still retains its meaning. Heresy or paraphrase is the erroneous belief that if you paraphrase a text, it can still retain its meaning. This is why in New Criticism the work of art is called poem. The work is called what? The work of art is called what? Poem. Poem. P-O-E-M. Poem. And being a poem suggests that all its parts are well structured and that a change of even one word could destroy the meaning of the poem. To alter even a word could destroy the meaning of the poem. So heresy or paraphrase is the erroneous belief that if you paraphrase a part of a text, it will still retain its meaning. Because in New Criticism, altering any part of the text damages the meaning of the text. In New Criticism, altering any part of the text damages the text, destroys the meaning of the text. So you cannot paraphrase a text in New Criticism and still retain the same meaning. You are going to change the meaning is going to change. So the reason that we have heresy or paraphrase in New Criticism is because the New Critics have a monistic view of language. The New Critics have what? A monistic view of language. The New Critics have a monistic view of language. The monists, in linguistics, the monists believe that there's no difference between content and form. In linguistics, the monists believe that there's no difference between content and form. Where content refers to what the work of art says, and form refers to how it says it. Where content refers to what the work of art says, and form refers to how it says it. In other words, the content refers to the message, while form refers to the language. The content refers to the themes, the ideas in the work of art, while form refers to the style, how language is used, how language is manipulated. For the monists, there's no difference between content and form. Form and content are inextricably linked or bound in the work of art, meaning that to change one is to change the other. To alter one is to alter the other. Meaning that to change one is to change the other, to alter one is to alter the other. To alter the language is to change the message in New Criticism. And this works well in poetry, especially metaphysical poetry. To alter the form is to alter content, because the New Critics have a monistic view of language. The New Critics have a monistic view of language. Now, other critics have a dualist view of language. All right? Dualist. Because the dualists believe in the separation between content and form. The dualists believe in the separation between what? Content and form. Meaning that if you alter the form, it will not affect the content. If you alter the form, it will not affect the content. Since there's a separation between content and form. That is what the work says and how it says it. So that is why we have heresy or paraphrase in New Criticism, because you cannot change a text without the words of a text without altering its meaning. Another term that we need to grapple with in New Criticism is objective correlative. Is what? Objective correlative. Subjective correlative. Objective correlative. Correlative. Correlative is spelled C-O-R-R-E-L-A-T-I-V-E. We talked about this when we were talking about modernism, traditional individual talents. Objective correlative refers to a set of objects, a situation, a set of objects, comma, a situation, comma, a chain of events, a chain of events, a chain of events, C-H-A-I-N, a chain of events, which shall be the formula of that particular emotion. Which shall be the formula for that particular emotion. Remember when we were talking about traditional individual talent, we said that to create a particular emotion in a work of art, you need to arrange the images in a systematic way so as to create the emotion. Because it has nothing to do with the mind of the reader. It has everything to do with language. And now we're expanding on that. We're saying that objective correlative refers to a set of objects, a situation, a chain of events, which shall be the formula of that particular emotion. Semicolon. Such that when the external facts, which must terminate in sensory experience, are given, the emotion is immediately evoked. Such that when the external facts, comma, which must terminate in sensory experience, comma, are given, comma, the emotion is immediately evoked. Objective correlative is a set of objects, a situation, a chain of events, which shall be the formula of that particular emotion, such that when the external facts, which must terminate with sensory experience, are given, the emotion is immediately evoked. That is objective correlative. Meaning that in order to capture a particular emotion, you need to arrange the symbols, the images, in a systematic manner in order to achieve that emotion. Whether you want to evoke sorrow, happiness, excitement in the reader, all you need to do is to systematically arrange the imagery, the words, in the right order. So objective correlative, for the last time, refers to a set of objects, a situation, a chain of events, which shall be the formula of that particular emotion, such that when the external facts, which must terminate in sensory experience, are given, the emotion is immediately evoked. Thus, Objective correlative refers to the artistic and literary technique of representing or evoking a particular emotion. Thus, objective correlative refers to the artistic and literary technique of representing or evoking a particular emotion by means of symbols which become indicative of that emotion and are associated with it. By means of symbols which become indicative of that emotion and are associated with it. Objective correlative refers to the artistic and literary technique of representing or evoking a particular emotion by means of symbols which become indicative of that emotion and are what? Associated with it. So there is objective correlative for discussing death. There is objective correlative for discussing hunger. There's objective correlative for talking about sorrow. There's objective correlative for talking about happiness in a literary work. All that the author needs to do is to find the right formula to write about a particular emotion. It has nothing to do with how the author feels. It has everything to do with how the author manipulates images and symbols or words in a piece of writing. So how do the new critics approach a text? How should the new critics approach a text? How should the new critics approach a text? A new critical approach to textual interpretation begins with what we call a close reading of the text. A close reading of the text. A new critical interpretation of a work of art begins with a close reading of the text. A close reading of the text. The work of art must be read. The work of art must be read. The work of art must be read. You cannot criticize a work of art without reading it. It's not done. There's no magic. There's no magic that can make that happen. You cannot escape the actual reading of the text. Please take note of this. You cannot escape the actual reading of the text. In fact, love for criticism generally begins with the love for reading the literary text. Love for criticism actually begins with love for reading the literary text. You need to fall in love with the literary text. You want to be a good critic of the text. And you must read the text by actually reading it. By actually reading it. So you must experience the text by reading it, not what someone tells you. And you must read the text properly. You must read the text what? Properly. Not starting reading the first page and then running to read the last page to see whether you can catch the story. That some people normally do. That's no reading. You're destroying the text. You're sabotaging the text. So you must read every word, every sentence from the beginning to the end in order to be able to say something sensible about that text. Otherwise, what we're saying will be cut and join, like some people normally do. And of course, you should know that reading, the word reading, also means interpretation. So as you're reading, you are interpreting the text. Meaning that you need to read the text well so that you can interpret it well. Reading is criticism. That's what it means. So I could use the whole time that we have to preach the gospel of actually reading the text. All right? So that you understand how important it is. Okay? I could cite instances, verses, scriptures to make you understand the importance of reading the text. How sinful it is for you not to read the text properly. Okay? How it is an abomination and a sacrilege for you to read the first part of the text, then you read the middle, and then you read the end. Okay? Because for some people, that's their reading strategy. And you must read the text and make notes. An active reading of the text involves taking down notes. An actual reading of the text involves what? Taking down notes while reading the text. Because it's not every fact that you remember when you keep down the text, when you have completed reading the text. But the notes will help your memory. The notes will aid your memory. So this is how to go. Because if you read a text and you don't take down notes, after 1 year, you cannot claim that you've not read that text. And then you can discuss it. You have to read it again. But if you've taken down notes, the notes will help you in discussing the text. So a close reading of the text is important.